Once upon a time, in a quiet town nestled between rolling hills, there lived a man named Thomas. Thomas was not old, but he was not young either. He was at that age where he often found himself looking back at his life, wondering if he had made the right choices. One evening, as he sat by the fireplace, he felt a heavy weight in his chest. Regret. He regretted the paths he had not taken, the words he had not spoken, and the chances he had let slip away. That night, he decided he would not let regret rule his life any longer. He would seek answers, and his journey would teach him how to avoid regret. Thomas began by visiting an old philosopher who lived on the edge of town. The philosopher was known for his wisdom, and many sought his advice. When Thomas explained his troubles, the old man listened quietly. Then he spoke. "Regret," he said, "is the shadow of choices unmade. To avoid it, you must first understand what truly matters." Thomas was confused. "How do I know what truly matters?" he asked. The philosopher smiled. "By living deliberately," he replied. Thomas left the philosopher's house with more questions than answers. He decided to spend the next days observing people who seemed content, free from regret. He met a carpenter who took pride in his work, a gardener who found joy in small things, and a teacher who loved sharing knowledge. Each of them, in their own way, lived with purpose. They did not chase after every opportunity, but focused on what aligned with their values. Thomas realized that regret often comes from chasing the wrong things. Things society tells us to want rather than what we truly desire. One afternoon, Thomas met a traveler who had seen many places. The traveler told him, "The biggest regrets are not the risks we took, but the ones we avoided out of fear." Thomas remembered times he had stayed silent when he should have spoken, or stayed in comfort when he should have ventured out. The traveler's words struck him. Avoiding regret, then, meant facing fear, not letting it decide his path. But how? Thomas wondered. He returned to the philosopher, who now gave him a simple exercise. "Every night," he said, "ask yourself, if today were my last day, would I be content with how I lived it?" Thomas began doing this. Some days, the answer was yes. Other days, no. But this practice made him more aware of his choices. He started saying what he meant, spending time with those he loved, and pursuing small passions he had long ignored. As weeks passed, Thomas noticed a change. The weight in his chest grew lighter. He still made mistakes, but he no longer dwelled on them. He understood that regret could not be erased entirely. It was part of being human. But it could be lessened by living with intention, by making choices aligned with his heart, and by not letting fear dictate his life. One evening, as Thomas sat by the fireplace again, he felt not regret, but peace. He knew there would still be moments of doubt, but he had learned the most important lesson. Avoiding regret was not about perfection, but about presence. It was about listening to that quiet voice inside, the one that knows what truly matters. And so, Thomas lived the rest of his days not free from regret, but free from its tyranny. He had learned how to live. And perhaps, dear listener, his story can teach us too. Regret is not our enemy, it is our teacher. If we listen, it shows us how to live better. The key is not to avoid mistakes, but to avoid living a life that is not our own. To choose courage over comfort, truth over silence, and love over fear. That is how we lighten the weight of regret. That is how we live a life we can look back on without sorrow, but with quiet gratitude. So ask yourself tonight, if today were your last, would you be content? And if the answer is no, remember, it is never too late to begin again. The next choice is always yours. Make it count.